When Ted was orphaned, feeling lost, a social worker brought him where quiet cornfields crossed, to Grandpa's farm where soft winds blew, under midwestern skies of blue. At first he thought nothing happens here, no dragons, trains or rockets near. But Grandpa smiled and tipped his hat. Adventure often starts like that. It doesn't always crash or roar. Sometimes it knocks on your own front door. At farmers' markets, Ted and Grandpa sold their garden goods in green and gold. Carrots, peppers, corn in rows, and of course, tomatoes. The farm was not so dull at all. It whispered wonder, soft and small. And Ted, once scared beneath the sun, found stories hiding in everyone. On weekends, when the chores were done, they chased the movies one by one. With popcorn warm and theatre light, Ted learned that dreams could glow at night. Then back at home, with crayons bright, he drew his own worlds into sight. He drew tall castles, secret lands, and treasure maps with wobbly hands. He drew bold heroes, skies that gleamed, and every place his heart had dreamed. Soon Ted grew into a man, with lesson books and classroom plans. He moved to Chicago's busy light, and tried to teach with all his might. Then Grandpa died, and something broke. The world felt thin each time Ted spoke. He started losing track of things, his books, his notes, his binder rings. He'd freeze when teaching in mid-thought, forgetting what the lesson taught. Sometimes words got stuck inside. Ted felt scared and tried to hide. His voice would wobble, trip and shake, and every mistake felt like an ache. Then came worry with heavy shoes, and stomped through like bad morning news. At night sleep vanished from his bed. What if they hate me? Whispered Ted. The other teachers smiled with care, but Ted felt certain standing there. They only pitied him each day, and wished he'd quietly go away. One day at lunch, with trays in line, the teachers shared cafeteria time. First grade teacher Mrs. Martinez took a bite, then dropped a peel, yellow and bright. She didn't mean to, not at all. The banana peel just chose to fall. It slipped away with comic flair and landed flat upon the square. She did it on purpose, Ted cried out, with flailing hands and frightened shout. He slipped, he stumbled, lost his cool, right there before the principal at school. Ted had never been that way, not before that dreadful day, but grief, depression, and worry, sharp and mean, had tangled up his inner mental health scene. The principal, Miss James, that day, called nervous Ted to come and stay. I've heard, she said in whispered tone, of something hidden and unknown. Somewhere deep in Costa Rica, past jungle vine and bright hibiscus I speak of, there lies a treasure strange and rare, protected deep inside a lair. If you can find it and return, you'll finally receive what you earn. A giant raise, promotion too, brand new life could wait for you. Ted thought about his debts unpaid, the fear that his credit card problems never seemed to fade, the sleepless nights, the heavy doubt, the constant worry swirling about. But more than money, more than fame, more than a shiny, better name, Ted wanted Grandpa somewhere near to see that he had conquered fear. So Ted agreed without delay and packed his bags that very day. He boarded up a silver plane above the farms and fields of grain. He said, I'll be courageous, I will try. I'll stop pretending I should hide. And Grandpa, if you can still see, I hope one day you'll smile at me. He rented the flashiest car around, a blazing red sports car beast on jungle ground. It's what explorers always choose, adventure cars and never blue. But then came crunching, then came doom. A tire burst beside the gloom. No cell phone bars, no people near, just jungle sounds and growing fear. From the jungle, calm and slow, came someone Ted already knew. A creature, cheerful with sleepy grin, came wobbling softly, wandering in. He asked, need a helping hand? You seem quite stranded where you stand. Ted blinked once hard, then blinked once more. His mouth dropped nearly to the floor. Mr. Sloth? Ted gasped in shock. My stuffed toy from Grandpa's box? The sloth just shrugged and gave a grin. Well, yes. Adventures do begin. Maybe friendship isn't scary, Mr. said, soft and merry. Sometimes hearts get less afraid when journeys do not walk alone. Then Mr. Sloth gave one last nod. Trust friendship, said the jungle god. and just beyond the vines and trees, the hidden cavern came with ease. Because behind him came a sound, a thunder shaking all the ground. Ted turned and screamed, "What could those be?" and sprinted blindly through the trees. Behind him charged enormous cyclops land whales, with giant eyes and monster tails. He dashed inside the cavern deep, where glowing shadows twisted deep. Somewhere in the echoing stone, adventure waited, all alone. Inside the cavern, dark and wide, Ted found his fears had come alive. The tunnels twisted left and right, with flickering lava-coloured light. Great gummy worms slid through the cave, and giant bees began to wave. A monstrous jack-in-the-box burst from a pile of glowing rocks. The monsters didn't want to fight, they simply wished to spend the night playing video games and hearing baseball tales, instead of roaring threats and wails. The jack-in-the-box, tall and red, looked sadly down at frightened Ted. "I only need someone smart to beat my Tetris game chart." The gummy worms all gathered near. "Please read aloud, we want to hear." The giant bees began to hum, waiting for the story to come. So Ted began to read out loud to worms and bees and cave-born crowd. And as the strange words filled the air, the cavern softened everywhere. Above them, perched upon a stone, a colourful, magical size-shifting toucan all alone. Its giant beak shone golden red, and this is what the toucan said: "A greater quest still waits ahead. Not every path is filled with dread. Some treasures hide behind strange doors. Beyond these glowing cavern floors, there will be a giant roll of toilet paper, bright and gleaming, tall and greater. Not flimsy New York toilet paper, thin and cheap, but a legendary luxury bathroom keep." Ted hardly listened to the joke. His hopeful heart already spoke. Ted said, "If I bring this treasure home, my troubles might finally be gone. The raise, promotion, debt relief, perhaps an end to all this grief. Perhaps the world will finally see there's something worthwhile inside me." Quickly thinking on the fly, Ted made a sneaky little try. He swapped the roll with debt collector mailed notices from his real name, and that time he opened a credit card as Otis. But then neon lights flashed through the room, painting every wall with doom. The temple floor began to shake. The glowing stones began to quake. Ted whispered softly, "That seems bad." And yes, the situation was absolutely not rad. From shadowed halls came booming cries, cyclops land whales with blazing eyes. They thundered forward fast and loud, a furious stampeding crowd. Lasers flashed across the walls, bats swooped through glowing ancient halls. The whales crashed loudly through the stone while Ted kept running all alone. Then in despair and pure alarm, Ted yanked a lever with one arm. The floor beneath him disappeared, and Ted went tumbling, shocked and weird. Ted landed in a pillowed room, safe at least from laser doom. A giant stage appeared from nowhere. Rows of seats stood strangely bare. No audience was sitting there at center stage beneath bright light. The toucan waited, poof, from a cloud, just right. "Welcome," cried the toucan host. "Tonight's contestant needs the most courage, wisdom, heart and nerve. Let's see what answers you deserve." Questions came both fast and wild, about history class notes from his childhood, about the books that Grandpa read, and fears that lived inside brave Ted. For the very first time in many years, Ted stood taller than his fears, and when the final buzzer rang, bright, winning golden lights above him sang. The toucan shook its head. "The quest was never what I said. The glowing roll was just a disguise, a silly decoy for your eyes." Ted blinked once slowly in surprise. "Then what exactly is the prize?" The toucan smiled, both warm and sly. "The answers lived inside you the whole time." Cavern walls began to glow, warm golden lights began to flow, and all around, like drifting streams, appeared forgotten childhood dreams. Ted saw himself when he was small, dreaming up adventures on the farmhouse wall. He saw Grandpa beside the chair, with dusty boots and white hair. Then Grandpa turned and softly spoke, as though the memory itself awoke. "You thought being brave meant feeling none of fear before the battle's done. But courage isn't never shaking. It isn't perfect choices making. It's trying again when days feel rough. And Ted, my boy, that is enough." all this time," Ted whispered low. "I thought I had to somehow show that I was fearless, smart and grand before I'd be a worthy man." The toucan perched beside the light, "But kindness is the greater might, and every creature that you met remembered how you treated them. The worms remembered story time, the sloth remembered friendship kind, the bees remembered patient care, the whales remembered you were scared." Ted laughed through tears. "The whales too?" The toucan nodded, "Especially those blue. Cyclops land whales are sensitive souls, very emotional in treasure rolls." Then deep beneath the glowing dome, Ted finally began to feel at home, not because treasure filled his hand, but because he could finally understand. The greatest prize he'd ever find was peace returning to his mind. His happiness was what Grandpa would have wanted for Ted, not that his grandson moped around and stayed in bed. When Ted returned from jungle skies, Chicago shimmered before his eyes. The streets were loud, the trains still roared, but Ted no longer felt ignored. He stopped hiding in library gloom and joined the teachers in the room. Sometimes they laughed. With his girlfriend, they ate. Sometimes they simply stayed out at movies very late. That girlfriend became his wife then soon, as Ted married her under a California moon. And in the future, Ted became someone's grandfather himself. Because through him, that's how Grandpa lived, with his heart on his sleeve and a shelf. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to never trip. You only need to try once more and walk with kindness through the door. For courage grows in quiet ways, in ordinary, shaky days. Sometimes heroes, strange but true, are simply people just like you.